Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the next to last, the penultimate, as I usually say, study of From Dust Returned. Great Ray Bradbury work. One of his more recent ones, of course, in terms of his career and life, but wonderful work, long time in the making that we've been going through this October. We divided it up into four sections. So we study tonight, and then next week we finish it off. Finish it off before Halloween, in time for Halloween. So that'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully you've been enjoying it. If you're around, I did. As Alan and I have talked about, we found a uh, version of this of the audio read by John Glover, which for some reason is available for free on YouTube. It hasn't been taken down or whatever. So that's uh, that's what's going on right now. You can listen along even if you don't want to read. If you do want to buy it, I've got a link in the description below. We only have one more, but it's such a worthy read. It really is fun. Perfect for this time of year too. As so much of Ray Bradbury stuff is. We've done Something Wicked This Way Comes. We've done the Halloween Tree. Now we're doing this one. Next year we'll pick another one from his library. But good stuff. So anyway, without any further ado, let me go ahead and welcome my co-host for these studies, as he joined us last week. Welcome, Mr. Uncle Alnar.
I believe I can fly.
How long were you
Uncle
working on
Alnar can touch the sky. How are you doing today?
I am well. I am doing very well. Let me welcome the chat here and see Edward joined us first. Great to see you there.
I was planning on some kind of a thing, but I was trying to remember that line from Rocket Man. I'm as high as a kite by then.
Yeah.
Arr.
Funny stuff. You should have gone to consult your William Shatner tape, and you would have found it.
Yeah, no, I just didn't get to it.
Welcome, Urbanverse. Daniel Heron is here. Great to see you. Stephen Cruz, keeping it weird. Great to see you. Team Ghost Planet 3.0 with us as well. Great to see everybody here. More people watching, so good to see. We've got some really cool chapters to go through tonight. Definitely excited about that. I do have some news first. I don't see my dear Sound Engraver. She's a little late to the stream. So first I'll ask you how your week's been, Al.
It's been a week.
Been a week.
Yeah, had a little binge on Netflix the other day. The second season of Another Life. I don't know how many people watched that. I don't think a lot because nobody talks about it.
I don't know.
And it's a real good show. It stars Katie Sackhoff. I'm going to do a video on it. I tried to do a video last night, but I just could not get it right. So I'm going to trash what I have and redo it tomorrow.
Okay.
Not time sensitive.
Are you going to brag? Are you going to brag at all?
I'm going to brag?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't, but if you want me to.
Go ahead.
I had two of my celebrity crushes actually like some tweets of mine, and I just, one, the aforementioned Miss Katie Sackhoff and Katja Herbers from Evil. And I just thought it was cool. One, it was Katja Herbert's birthday, and I wished her a happy birthday. She liked it, and I was very pleased that Katie Sackhoff's going to be doing a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I'm just so excited about that. And I typed that, and she liked that too. So
it's really fun when you get the attention from their publicists like that. So
hey, you know what? Don't care. The name
who knows? It could be their own account. It's not everybody uses publicists like that. So
doesn't matter. I live in the fantasy, and that is fine.
Edward talking about the older Public novels. Yeah, they're great. It's been a while since I read them, so I get the names mixed up with the Fatal Alliance and Annihilation. My favorite was definitely the one. I think it was the follow up to the comics, like you're saying, with Theron and Nostral. Nostral is one of my favorite Jedi, so that was really a great one. But yeah, a lot of people talking about my shirt. Yes, thank you. The I will not comply shirt. You can lose as much patience with me as you want, Biden. What else is got here?
Just biding our time.
Steve Chris said, I love how all these stories are fun and spooky without all the gore, pure Halloween bliss. Yeah, that's Halloween to me. I like that. I like that kind of thing. And there's my sound engraver. She made it at last. This question is, Al, how many celebrity crushes do you have?
I've never counted, but I could do probably a top 10 list.
Mm-hmm.
They fluctuate. I have some, standards, and I have the new ones that kind of float in and out.
Yeah. Oh, I see Sandra says her computer wasn't working and she had Chinese food on her hands. So that's my fault because I bought the Chinese food tonight. So it's my bad. Welcome, Crispy, as well. Well, now that Sound Engraver's here, I'm going to go ahead and brag about this. And I told Daniel Heron, I was like, you need to drop in for this too because she probably has something to say to you. The other night, Sound Engraver watched Ernest Scared Stupid with me. And she did not have to tolerate this at all. She laughed out loud on multiple occasions.
I knew she'd like it.
Unprompted by me, she enjoyed the movie. She thought it was great. She's not going to say too much about it. She'll probably say, "Oh, I wouldn't say great." She laughed. She enjoyed it. It was awesome. Touched my heart.
She drank the Miak.
That's right. I actually had the Ernest doll that Daniel gave me. She was in the bathroom, and while she was in the bathroom, I had the Ernest doll. I set it on the couch to where it would be like staring at her. And she and then I used the bathroom after her, and I came out of the bathroom, and she looked at the Ernest doll and said, "So you just don't want to kiss tonight? Is that what you're saying?" And I was like, "Oh, we'll just put Ernest back on the floor then." And have that. A couple times she said, "Daniel." Every time she sees the Ernest doll, she's just got words for Daniel Heron. But she says, I tried holding my laughing in. I know she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. It's too good. It is too good. One of my favorite moments is when he first sees Trantor. He's alone in the treehouse, and the lights go out and everything, and he hits the deck, and all of a sudden you see the silhouette of Trantor there. And Ernest goes, "Boy, I sure hope you're from Keebler." I lose it. It's great. So many great lines. But yep. Oh, Professor Daniel has that. That's good. Your life-size Ernest arrives next week. Awesome. So anyway, all that preamble there. We'll go ahead and get started with our book study, but I just had to brag.
You got to dress as Ernest for Halloween. You got to do it.
No, I don't think I could do, because you'd have to, if you're going to dress as Ernest, you've got to act like Ernest, and I'm no actor, and I couldn't. There are some people out there who can. They do it really well.
Oh, but, sure.
I do want to earn it. They've had Ernest shirts, especially Ernest Scared Stupid shirts with Trantor and everything like that, which I've loved, but they've always been like limited edition, so I've never been able to grab one. So one of these days, though. One of these days. Senator says, "Thanks, Daniel. I could use something to punch." So, we left off with they had this the Elliots had this wonderfully big homecoming where their family, the creepy, spooky, haunted people from all over the world came as a big family reunion there to the house in October Country there. And it's over. And at that point, we had the 3 or 4 cousins who lost their bodies while they were out, spiritually gallivanting with Ceci. And they ended up in Grandpere's head. And that was a wonderful chapter. If you missed that, you definitely check out last week's stream where we talk about that, or read it yourself. It's so good. But this week we open in chapter 11. It's a very short little chapter. I won't read it, but basically the gist, it's called Many Returns. And the problem we find out, and I'll read some explanations of this in some of the later chapters here we have tonight. But the problem is that when people are returning from the homecoming, when the October people, as they're called, are returning from homecoming, the ghosts, ghouls, werewolves, vampires, whichever they are, they find that the world is changing to the point where belief in them is lagging. All of the Enlightenment, the wars in Europe, and so forth, and it's they're finding it harder to exist in places where there's no belief. So a lot of them are coming back and returning to the house, and then returning to the home there to stay there for safekeeping. So one of these stories about one of the family fleeing the home is in chapter 12, and it's a wonderful story. It's called On the Orient North. This had to touch you, Al, right? It's just so great.
I loved this story. I truly did. I thought it was so sweet, and I'm not going to get into it because we got to go through it. But
sure,
there was something. It was very touching. It was a very touching journey.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Well, hold on to that and tell me about it after we talk about, the plot and everything, because I'd like to know your thoughts on it, with spoilers and all. But the story, so we're on the Orient Express, this train heading from Venice to Paris, leaving, deep into Europe, going up north, basically. And we're in the perception of this woman, this nurse, Miss Minerva, get the last part of her name, Minerva Halliday.
Yeah.
She's on this train, and there's this she's this older nurse, and there's this patient, this sickly, very sickly man who just looks on the verge of death, and she takes notice. And at one point, and we get a little description of her. At one point, she's in the dining car, and she's seated, or this patient comes in and is seated right across from her. He arrived this night, moving with a terrible slowness, to sit across the aisle from this woman of some years. And this is the nurse. Her bosom like a fortress, her brow serene, her eyes filled with a kindness that had mellowed with time. There was a black medical bag at her side, and a thermometer tucked in her mannish lapel pocket. The ghastly man's paleness caused her left hand to crawl up along her lapel to touch the thermometer. "Oh dear," whispered Miss Minerva Halliday. The maitre d' was passing. She touched his elbow and nodded across the aisle. "Pardon, but where is that poor man going?" "Calais and London, madam, if God is willing." And he hurried off. Minerva Halliday, her appetite gone, stared across at that skeleton made of snow. The man and the cutlery laid before him seemed one. The knives, forks, and spoons jingled with a silvery cold sound. He listened, fascinating, as if to the voice of his inner soul as the cutlery crept, touched, chimed, a tintinnabulation from another sphere. His hands lay in his lap like lonely pets, and when the train swerved around a long curve, his body, mindless, swayed now this way, now that, toppling. At which moment the train took a great curve and knocked the silverware chittering. A woman at the far table laughed, cried out, "I don't believe it." A little snippet of their conversation. "I don't believe it." To which a man with a louder laugh shouted, "Nor do I." This coincidence caused in the ghastly passenger a terrible melting. The doubting laughter had pierced his ears. He visibly shrank, his eyes hollowed, and one could almost imagine a cold vapor gasp from his mouth. Miss Minerva Halliday, shocked, leaned forward and put out one hand. She heard herself whisper, "I believe." The effect was instantaneous. The ghastly passenger sat up. Color returned to his white cheeks. His eyes glowed with the rebirth of fire. His head swiveled, and he stared across the aisle at this miraculous woman with words that cured. So she's blushing at this point. She leaves. Now it's just a momentary flicker of life returned to him, but otherwise he's still quite ill. I love scenes like that. Again, just the poetic prose of Bradbury is wonderful. She's back in her car, and she notices that the who is it? Is it that's the porter or somebody's going through the knocking on the doors, asking each door if basically if they're a doctor. And he gets to her, and she's like, "No, I'm a nurse." And he says, "Please come this way." So the man's in his room, close to death at this point, and she's in there with him, and she tells the everybody to leave. Just she'll call if she needs anybody. And she tells him, she whispers into, "Listen very carefully." For answer, she thought she heard the coldest throb of a single heartbeat. She continued, "I do not know how I guessed this. I know who you are and what you are sick of." The train curved. His head lolled as if his neck had been broken. "I'll tell you what you're dying from," she whispered. "You suffer a disease of people." His eyes popped wide as if he's been shot through the heart. She said, "The people on this train are killing you. They are your affliction." Something like a breath stirred behind the shut wound of the man's mouth. "Yes." Her grip tightened on his wrist, probing for some pulse. "You are from some Middle European country, yes? Somewhere where the nights are long and when the wind blows, people listen. But now things have changed, and you have tried to escape by travel. But—" Just then a party of young wine-filled tourists bustled along the outer corridor, firing off their laughter. The ghastly passenger withered. How do you know this?" he whispered. "I am a special nurse with a special memory. I met someone like you when I was 6. And she goes on to describe meeting a ghost when she was 6 at in her uncle's castle in Ireland or something like that, And so she remembers what it was like to be next to a ghost, so she knows that he is indeed a ghost.
I like the fact that they don't give him a name.
Yeah.
It's simply the ghastly passenger, and I think that's very appropriate for the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love, and first of all, totally made me think of you, how you shrink from the public.
the introvert with social anxiety. Yep.
People.
Yep. Well, there's a part, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but since you mentioned the
Mm.
name, I will read this. When she asks his name, he says, "I have no name," he whispered. "1,000 fogs have visited my family plot. 1,000 rains have drenched my tombstone. The chisel marks were erased by mist and water and sun. My name has vanished with the flowers and the grass and the marble dust." So the idea that literally what he's talking about is his name has been eroded from the tombstone, so he has no name. But memory is really what he's talking about here. Memory has been, no one remembers him, so why would he have a name at this point? That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays into the idea of memory and belief and everything, the greater theme of the story. He is go ahead.
I also couldn't help getting that little tweak of Peter Pan.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in fairies.
Yeah.
And how it gives the power of belief that gives strength to the mystical and unknown.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big theme in the book, and it's very similar to that. Yeah, we will talk about that a little bit too as we develop this, because that's a pretty important theme for readers as well. But she tells him it's impossible for you to make it there alone. Impossible without me. I will travel with you to Calais and across to Dover. But you don't know me. Oh, but I dreamed you as a child, long before I met someone like you in the midst of rains of Ireland at the age of 9. I searched the moors for the Baskerville hound. Yes, said the ghastly passenger, you are English, and the English believe. True, better than Americans who doubt. French, cynics. English is best. There is hardly an old London house that does not have its sad lady of mists crying before dawn. Which at the time was very true. I don't think it's sadly true anymore,
The kind of like the banshee kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
The wailing woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
eventually, go ahead.
And I do love that, because it made me think. It's kind of how I feel. I hate the fact that the mystery of the world is being lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it makes the world a sadder place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's especially today. It's very relevant today. I mean, it's been relevant through different times with the Enlightenment, obviously, and then on to and there's nothing wrong with scientific advances and technological advances. Those are all wonderful, but scientism is the problem, where people make a religion out of science, and we see it today. Truly, follow the science, because I said it's a science. It's like just follow what I say, and I've got the power of the word science behind it, so you have to believe it. And don't believe anything else. Don't believe any of that that's not, from following the science, So that's a big theme we're going to talk about in some of the coming chapters here. But he eventually says, why are you doing this? Helping me. At last she smiled, for she heard the right answer fall from her lips. I have never in my life had a lark. Lark? My life was that of a stuffed owl. I was not a nun, yet never married. Treating an invalid mother and a half-blind father, I gave myself to hospitals, tombstone beds, cries at night, and medicines that are not perfumed to passing men. So I am something of a ghost myself, yes? And now, tonight, 66 years on, I have at last found in you a patient, magnificently different, fresh, absolutely new. Oh Lord, what a challenge. I will pace you, to face people off the train. Through the crowds in Paris, then the trip to the sea, off the train, onto the ferry. It will indeed be a lark, cried the ghastly passenger. Spasms of laughter shook him. Larks, yes, that is what we are. But she said, in Paris, do they not eat larks even while they roast priests? I wanted to get at that reason why she does it, because there's the cool thing about speculative fiction like this is that, remember when we talked about Timothy's situation in the previous week's study, and how you write what you need to write what you know. And that doesn't mean you need to know supernatural or you need to have an uncle with wings or anything like that, but you need to put real, true human experiences if you're going to, into your speculative, universe or your supernatural universe, if that's what you're going to write about. But that's not enough. You've got to justify something about that supernatural universe as a way of recontextualizing that true human experience to give us a bigger truth out of it. You know, Stephen King often says, above all, the most important thing is to tell the truth. This is obviously fiction. Even in fiction, fiction should tell uh, the truth of human experience. That's what it needs to get at. So we'll develop that as we go through a bit. They do make it to Paris. They have to get off the train at Paris for a time. And she packs a picnic. And in Paris, to try to avoid, all of the cynics and unbelief there of Paris, she takes him to a graveyard. And he says, "Where will we picnic?" And she says, "Anywhere you pick. But remember, this is a Paris cemetery packed with disbelief." So they walked. Ghastly passenger nodded. The first stone, beneath it, nothing. Death, final, not a whisper of time. The second stone, a woman, a secret believer because she loved her husband and hoped to see him again in eternity. A murmur of spirit here. And turning of a heart. Better. Now this, third gravestone, a writer of thrillers for a French magazine. But he loved his nights, his fogs, his castles. This stone is a proper temperature. Like a good wine, here we shall set, dear lady, as you decant the champagne, and we wait to catch our train. So, again, a belief of memory and belief. There's some wonderful moments. It's such a great story. We can spend the whole night on it, and I don't want to do that. But when he's having moments of almost slipping away because of disbelief, she has to go grab books with ghosts in them. Hamlet, Christmas Carol, Wuthering Heights, all these books, and read them to him. There's a wonderful scene, and you can say more about this if you want, Al, but I'm not going to talk too much about it, where he's really about gone once they get on the cruise ship, and she has to bring him into the children's area, the nursery area, and tell them ghost stories. And she asked him, "Now, do you believe in ghosts?" And all these kids are like, "Yes, I believe in ghosts, absolutely," and that buoys him up and helps him get through. As they make sure I'm not skipping over anything I wanted to read. As they near the end of, go ahead.
So, but yeah, just a quick about the power of children, the belief, the innocence of a child, really helps. You become an adult, we become so. Oh, what is the word? Just stupid about stuff.
Or too rational.
Yeah, a little.
We lose
bit.
The magic.
Exactly. We definitely do lose the magic.
And you made a great reference to Peter Pan, because that story is wonderfully in step with the themes of this one here. Definitely. At the end, when they're finally there, and it's just one more train ride up into Scotland, seeing him dash like a child before her, she could only stand. So he just takes off. The final train's here. She could only stand, riven with delight, and something more than delight. And he ran, and her heart ran with him, and suddenly knew a stab of amazing pain, and a lit of darkness struck her as she swooned. Hurrying, the ghastly passenger did not notice that the old nurse was not beside him or behind him, so eagerly did he go. At the train, he gasped, "There, safely," grasping the compartment handle. Only then did he sense a loss, and turned. Minerva Halliday was not there. And yet, an instant later, she arrived, looking paler than before, but with an incredibly radiant smile. She wavered and almost fell. This time it was he who reached out. "Dear lady," he said, "you have been so kind." "But," she said, quietly looking at him, waiting for him to truly see her, "I am not leaving." "I am going with you," she said. "But your plans have changed. Now I have nowhere else to go." She half turned to look over her shoulder. At the dock, a swiftly gathering crowd peered down at someone lying on the planks. Voices murmured and cried out. The word doctor was called several times. The ghastly passenger looked at Minerva Halliday. Then he looked at the crowd and the object of the crowd's alarm lying on the dock. A medical thermometer lay broken under their feet. He looked back at Minerva Halliday, who still stared at the broken thermometer. "Oh, my dear kind lady," he said at last. "Come." She looked into his face. "Larks," she said. He nodded. "Larks." And he helped her up into the train, which soon jolted and then dinned and whistled away along the tracks toward London and Edinburgh, and moors and castles and dark nights and long years. "I wonder who she was," said the ghastly passenger, looking back at the crowd on the dock. "Oh, Lord," said the old nurse, "I never really knew." And the train was gone. It took a full 20 seconds for the tracks to stop trembling. Awesome way to end the story. It's so beautiful, so great.
It was at its heart a love story.
Yeah. This is a story. If you want to tear away the supernatural trappings of it, this is a story of two older people meeting, finding each other romantically on this trip. They're both late in life. They both never feel they truly found themselves in life, or they've lost themselves somehow at this moment. And they find in the other's compassion and in the other's similar plight that acceptance, that love, that everything that they want. And you can tell that story easily without the supernatural elements. But what do the supernatural elements add? And they add so much. They recontextualize it for us in a great way. And this is the work of speculative fiction. Little symbols like the thermometer, trusting too much in the material, concrete world around us, not trusting enough in our heart, head over heart. Also trusting too much in responsibilities. Now, not that she shouldn't have been responsible and taking care of her mother or her father, but she gave up who she was. She gave up herself. Identity is an issue here. And identity comes into play in our other substantive short story for tonight too, which is great. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful story. Again, we could go on and just do the whole study on it tonight, but we're moving through. We've got certain chapters to take in. People seem to like it in the chat. Welcome, Tom Spiegel. Good to see you there. AL likes it. Queedle, welcome, Queedle. Sounding says, I love that Minerva found meaning in death. There's weight and significance in the eternal. Yeah. And she didn't know who she was until that moment, waiting for him to truly see her. And, she never even knew who she was until she found herself here, which is a really sweet idea. So, yeah, it's a romance.
And like I said, in her passing, she is truly reborn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into a better, almost a better form, because she's happier, and now she's found someone that she could be a loving companion to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple little shorter chapters after that. Chapter 13 starts out with back at the home on the hill there in October Country, and the family's gathering around, and they're discussing the fact that a lot of them are returning. A lot of people are returning from the homecoming, or from leaving the homecoming, because of this unbelief. And we'll get to some really good speeches about this in a moment. But well, for one, Nostrum PC says he's this hunchback. There are wars. The wars in Europe have ravined the sky, shredded the clouds, poisoned the winds. Even the west to east oceanic currents of the heavens are redolent of sulfur and brimstone. The trees of China, they say, from their recent wars are bereft of birds. The Orient wise are thus grounded where the trees lie empty. Now the same threatens in Europe. Our shadow cousins not long ago made it to the Channel and across to England, where they might survive. But that is mere guesswork. When the last and they're talking about the patient and Minerva there. When the last castles of England decay and the people waken from what they call superstition, our cousins may well be in failing health and soon be melted down to sod. So they suddenly get this knock at the door, and it ends up being the ghastly passenger and Minerva. They've been in Scotland for so many years now, and that the belief is there has started to wane to the point where they are now returning as well, seeking refuge here. And they knock on the door, and I like to read this this wonderful speech of the ghastly passenger. Timothy's father opens the door, and he says, "Are you one of us?" "Am I one of you, or with you?" the ghastly passenger replied. "And what are you, or we, or us? Can it be named? Is there a shape? What ambience is there? Are we kin to autumn rains? Do we rise in mists from wetland moors? Do twilight fogs seem similar? Do we prowl or run or lope? Are we shadows on a ruined wall? Are we dust shaken in sneezes from angel tombstones with broken wings? Do we hover or fly or writhe in October ectoplasms? Are we footsteps heard to waken us and bump our skulls on nailed shut lids? Are we batwing heartbeats held in claw or hand or teeth? Do our cousins weave and spell their lives like the creature lassoed to the boy child's neck? He gestured. Iraq unraveled its spinet in dark silence. Do we snug with that? Again the gesture. Mouse vanished in Timothy's vest. Do we move soundless? There. Anuba combed good Timothy's foot. Are we the minor glimpses, unseen but there? Do we abide in walls as mortuary beetles telling time? Is the drafting breath, upsucked in chimneys, our terrible respiration? When clouds curdle the moon, are we such clouds? When rain spouts speak from the gargoyles' mouths, are we those tongueless sounds? Do we sleep by day and swarm glide in splendid night? When autumn trees shower bullions, or we that Midas stuff? I love that image. When autumn trees shower bullions, are we that Midas stuff? The gold leaves falling down, a leaf fall that sounds the air in crisp syllables. What are we? And who are you, and I, and all that surrounding gasps of dead but undead cries? Ask not for whom the funeral bell tolls. It tolls for thee and me and all the ghastly terribles who nameless wander in a marley death of chains. Do I speak the truth? Oh, yes, exclaimed Father. Come in. Yes, Nostrus Paracelsus Crook said. In, cried Timothy. In, pantomimed Danuba and Mouse and ain't-legged Iraq. In, whispered Timothy, and the ghastly passenger lurched into the arms of his cousins to beg merciful lodgings for 1,000 nights, and a chorus of eyes soared up like a rain reversed, and the door shut, and the ghastly passenger and his wondrous nurse were home. So they didn't die off in Scotland. They're back here with us as well. Then there's another short chapter here in chapter 14 in which they're basically meeting to try and decide, what do we do about this? Can we truly just house everyone in this home? There's something going on in the world. What is to be done about all of this? And go ahead.
Sorry, I just it made me think of something, because we've been comparing it to the Addams family. And I was thinking it's almost like an opposite, because you have the Addams family who are weird and strange, but don't realize it, and they just fit into the normal world. Whereas the Elliots know they're different and know the real world is bad for them, actually. And I just think it's an interesting twist. And that's kind of exemplified a lot in the October people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, Addams family, Charles Addams was doing that at the time. But you can definitely tell Bradbury took inspiration from that. And as I said, some of these had been written or published in part, or at least partly composed throughout the years of his career, but it was 2000 that he released this. So by that time, he's got the influence of the Addams family, the Munsters, all of these. He's doing his own thing with it, as you said. So they're one of the things they're doing at this meeting is cataloging each other, because who are they? They need to figure out, how many are they? Are they vampires, werewolves? What's a catalog of them? And the father has been getting some information. He says at one point, we need a moonless night resume from all. With this knowledge, we can stand together when this mindless war reaches its peak. Now, Timothy, he's the scribe, right? He's to write down. So he's been like taking the notes of the meeting. He's there to write down everything. War? Timothy glanced up. What war? And then clapped his palm over his mouth and blushed. Sorry. No need, boy, the father of all darkness spoke. Listen now. Let me provide the history of the rising tide of disbelief. And I love this speech here. Soundegriver was talking about the great rhetorical speech of the ghastly passenger. This is another one, be worthy of a film. The Judeo-Christian world is a devastation. The burning bush of Moses will not fire. Christ from the tomb fears to come forth, should he not be recognized by doubting Thomas. The shadow of Allah melts at noon. So Christians and Muslims confront a world torn by many wars to finalize yet a larger. Moses did not walk down the mountain, for he never walked up. Christ did not die, for he was never born. All this, mind you, is of great importance to us, for we are the reverse side of the coin, tossed in the air to fall heads or tails. Does the unholy or holy win? Ah, but look, the answer is neither, none, or what? Not only is Jesus lonely in Nazareth in ruins, but the populace at large believes in nothing. There is no room for either glorious or terrible. I love right there, I just want to point out that when he says the populace at large believes in nothing, nothing is capitalized. Again, that's the nihilism. That's the scientism, that we believe in. It's not that we don't believe in anything. We believe in nothing as a visceral thing. It's a religion in its own right. We are in danger too, trapped in the tomb with an uncrucified carpenter, blown away with the burning bush as the East's black cubicle cracks its mortar and falls. The world is at war. They do not name us the enemy, no, for that would give us flesh and substance. You must see the face or the mask in order to strike through one to deface the other. They war against us by pretending, no assuring each other we have no flesh and substance. It is a figment war, and if we believe as these disbelievers believe, we will flake our bones to litter the winds. Ah, whispered the many shadows at the council, "Ee," came out the murmur. "No." "But yes," said father in his ancient shroud. "Once the war was simply between Christians and Muslims and ourselves. As long as they believed in their sermoned lives and disbelieved in us, we had more than a mythical flesh. We had something to fight for, to survive. But now that world is filled with warriors who do not attack, but simply turn away or walk through us, who do not even argue us as half unreal. We find ourselves weaponless. One more tidal wave of neglect, one more titanic rainfall of nothings from nowhere, and the apocalypse arriving will with one neglectful gust blow out our candles. A dust storm of sorts will sneeze across the world, and our family will be no more, destroyed by a single phrase which, if listened to and leaned on, simply says, 'You do not exist. You did not exist. You never were.'" So how do we do this? How do we fix this? We need to make them believe in us again. But then the ghastly passenger speaks up and says, "The problem is," interjected the ghastly passenger, "we must make people believe in us only up to a point. If they believe in us too much, they will forge hammers and sharpen stakes, manufacture crucifixes, and forge mirrors. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. How do we fight without appearing to fight? How do we manifest without making our focus too clear? Tell people we are not dead and yet have been duly buried." And then Timothy's the one who speaks up with this idea. And I'll just kind of summarize it here. But basically, he says, spread out. He says we're not going to get anywhere all huddled up together in this house, waiting for the end to finally befall us here as well. Spread out. Let Ceci help, because she can travel and she can find the appropriate places for each person to basically haunt, is the idea. And then through that dispersal of presences, we can start to make ourselves felt in the world. That's the idea, basic idea that he's getting at here. And that brings us up to chapter 15, the Uncle Linar chapter. So you have anything else to say about that, Al, before I jump into that?
No, I just like the idea of spreading the mysterious throughout the world to kind of bolster everyone's superstitions.
Yeah.
Thus empowering them.
Yeah. So this has been the plan, and this has been enacted. And we have Uncle Einar's chapter, which is just so wonderful. It's so great. And again, think about this in terms of what we looked at the Orient, passage of the Orient, their story, and that this is a basic story. It's a human story being told with the supernatural trappings that are recontextualizing it for us and showing us a different link, our take on it. So the story opens with Uncle Einar having a wife. And he's kids, and his wife is asking him to take this line of clothing of wash and go fly it through the sky to dry it out. And he's like, "I'm not going to do that. I'm tired of doing that kind of stuff."
Nag.
I know. "So it's come to this," he muttered terribly, "to do this, to this. Don't cry. You'll wet the clothes down again," she said. "Jump now, jump up, run them." So then we get a little flashback. He does it. He dries the clothes and comes back, and we get the flashback to how this came about. How he's somewhere here, married. He was sent out, as many others were, and he's flying through the night because he can only fly at night. Obviously, if they see a guy flying through the air in the sky, some redneck's going to shoot him, So, or if somebody be terrified or shoot him or whatever. So nighttime is when he flies, and he's got this sonar ability, like a bat, basically to navigate. But he flies through a storm, and he's struck by lightning. It's a great scene there, and he ends up hitting the ground. He's wounded. And then this woman who is out looking for her cow, basically, who's wandered off, finds him, Brunhilde Wexley. And it's a funny, she finds him there. "You look banged around," she said. "That right wing looks very bad." She thinks it's a guy in a tent at first. And then she goes, "Oh, it's a winged man." And we realized that Ceci had been talking to her. So Ceci's been out looking for a wife for Einar, someplace for him to settle down and kind of spread his thoughts and lore there as well. And this Brunhilde is one of the possibilities. "That right wing looks very bad. You'd best let me fix it. You won't be able to fly it on anyway. Did Ceci tell you I live alone with my children? I'm an astrologer of sorts, most peculiar, strange, almost psychic, and as you see, quite ugly." He insisted she was not, and he didn't mind the psychic. But wasn't she afraid of him, he asked. "Jealous would be more near it," she said. "May I?" And she stroked his large green membrane veils with careful envy. He shuddered at the touch and put his tongue between his teeth.
Chicka bow bow.
But the idea that this is someone reaching out to him in human touch and it's not running away in fear is the point.
I couldn't help but get thoughts of the Ferengi and the Umak with their ears.
That's right. Yeah, the ear. That's right. Yeah, they like that touched. Yeah, that's a good one. It was so then so she helps him. She puts ointment on his head and everything, kind of nurses him back there. Well, a day passed and another. The day came that he thanked her at the door and said he must be going. After all, Ceci wanted him to meet a number of other possible ladies in the far country before he decided where to terrapin, fold his wings, and settle in. It was twilight, and he must travel many miles to farm farther on. Thank you and goodbye, he said as he unfurled his wings and started to fly off in the dusk and crashed straight into a maple tree. Oh, she cried and ran to stand over his unconscious body. So we find out that that lightning strike that had hit him has taken out his ability of sonar. So he can no longer fly at night and feel where things are, hear where things are. So he's basically, he can only fly at day, but he can't fly at day. So he's stuck. He's stuck. And we find out that because he's stuck, he pretty much just ends up kind of falling for Brunhilde and they end up marrying. It's nice that did it. Go ahead.
Brunilla,
yeah, Wexley. The winged telepathy that told him where towers, trees, and wires stood across the path to find clear vision mentality had guided him. Twixt cliff and pole and pine was gone. And Ceci's distant voice of no help. The crack across his face, the blue electrical flames that slawed off his perceptions, perhaps forever. How am I to fly back to Europe, he groaned pitifully, if I want some day to fly there? Oh, Brunilla Wexley said, studying the floor, who wants Europe? So we're going to build that what this story is really about. This story is about somebody settling down and realizing that they have a new life now and they can't do all the wonderful things you used to be able to do as a single and free and, man, wild guy sowing his wild oats and so forth,
yeah.
And so they were married. The ceremony was brief, if a little inverted and dark and mildly different to Brunilla, but it ended well. Uncle Einar stood with his fresh bride, thinking that he didn't dare fly back to Europe in the daytime, which was the only time he could safely see now, for fear of being seen and shot, but it didn't matter anymore, for with Brunilla beside him, Europe had less and less fascination for him. He didn't, so long before we get to the moment of him sort of being tired of where he is and having to take the washing out, he's really content here with his wife. He didn't have to see very well to fly straight up or come down, so it was only natural that on their wedding night he gathered Brunilla and soared straight up in the clouds. A farmer 5 miles over glanced at the sky about midnight and saw faint glows and crackles. Heat lightning, he figured. They didn't come back down until dawn with the dew. So, wedding night in the sky. All right. Mile High Club marriage.
Yeah, Mile High Club. But I like the imagery, and I was thinking cinematically with getting hit by the St. Elmo's fire, just like just all the static electricity, just taking it right out, and just like you said, nullifying his sonar. It's kind of sad because he's losing the great gift that he has.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that.
But it led him to a better gift.
That's the thing. That's the point of the story, right? So everything he's defined himself as has been this winged night flyer, able to go wherever he wants, do whatever he was. That's his identity. It's who he is at the very core. And he's not able to do that anymore. And for a while, he's content. The marriage took. She was so winged proud of him, it lifted her to think she was the only woman in the world married to a winged man. Who else could say it? She asked her mirror. And the answer was no one. Now, part of that is her fascination with a strange and different, man. But it's also the fact that he loves her. Because as she many times says, she doesn't think she's very pretty and so forth. So somebody so magnificent is wanting her. This is her experience. He, on the other hand, found great beauty behind her face, great kindness and understanding. He made some changes in his diet to fit her thinking and was careful that his wings did not knock porcelains and spill lamps. He also changed his sleeping habits since he couldn't fly nights anyhow, and she in turn fixed chairs so they were comfortable for his wings and said things he loved to hear. We're all in cocoons, she said. I'm plain bred, but one day I'll break out wings as fine and handsome as yours. You broke out long ago, he said. Yes, she had to admit, I know just which day it was, in the woods when I looked for a cow and found a camp tent. And they laughed, and in that moment a hidden beauty slipped her from her homeliness like a sword from its case. So right there, the accommodations they make to each other, the compromises, learning to live together, as any married couple would, right? Then it talks about her children. She has father, 3 boys and a girl who, for all their energy, seem to have wings. They popped up like toadstools on hot summer days to ask Uncle Einar to sit under the apple tree and fan them with his cooling wings and tell them wild starlit tales of youth and sky excursions. So he told them of the winds and the cloud textures and what a star feels like melting in your mouth and the taste of high mountain air and how it feels to be a pebble dropped from Mount Everest, turning to a green bloom, flowering your wings just before striking the ageless snow. This was his marriage. Then, and now we get, and today, here said Uncle Einar, fustering under a green tree, grown impatient and unkind, not because this was his desire, but because after the long wait, his night flight sense never returned. So here's the important part. It's not that he's dissatisfied or no longer content or happy with his marriage life and his life with the kids and all of that. It's the fact that, yeah, but now I'm really feeling like I really truly have totally lost that which had defined me before. And it's that, it's a common thing for anybody settling down, whether it's obviously in marriages, but also just somebody settling down into, say, a career, or a vocation or whatever. You the things that defined you before simply can't carry over in the same way. So this is what he's discontent over, the fact that he can't just truly be free and fly and spread his wings and be who he is. He can't, because he can't fly at night and he can't fly during the day. So this is his problem. And it's not, and so the kids eventually come and they want to, hey, do this with us, do that, fan us now, fan us, the small daughter. The children stood before him looking up. No, he said. Fan us, Papa, said the honorable new son. It's a cool day. There'll soon be rain, said Uncle Einar. There's a wind blowing, Papa. The wind will blow the clouds away, said the second very small son. Will you come watch us, Papa? Run on, Einar told them. Let Papa brood. Again, he thought of old skies, night skies, cloudy skies, all kinds of skies. Was it to be his fate to scull pastures in fear of being be seen breaking wing on a silo or cracking up a kindling fence? Gah! Come watch us, Papa, said the girl. We're going to the hill, said one boy, with all the kids from town. Uncle Einar chewed his knuckles. What hill's that? The Kite Hill, of course, they sang together. Now he examined the 3. They each held large paper kites against their grasping bosoms, their face bathed with anticipation and animal glowing, and their small fingers were balls of white twine. From kites colored red, blue, yellow, and green hung appendages of cotton and silk strips. We'll fly our kites. Come see. No, he said. I'd be seen. You could hide and watch from the woods. We want you to see. The kites, he said, made them ourselves. So he gets this idea, and he says, I'm going to win, said the girl. No, me, the boys contradicted. Me. God, roared Uncle Einar. He leaped up with a deafening kettle drum of wings. Children, I love you. What? What's wrong? The children backed off. Nothing, chanted Einar, flexing his wings to their greatest propulsion and plundering. Whoom! They whammed together like cymbals, and the children fell back in a backwash. I have it. I'm free again. Free. Fire in the flue. Feather on the wind. Brunilla! He called to the house. She stuck her head out. I'm free, he cried, flushed and tall. Listen, I don't need the night. I can fly by day now. I don't need the night. I'll fly every day and any day of the year from now on, and nobody'll know, and nobody'll shoot me down. And but God, I waste time. Look. And as the shocked member of his family watched, he seized the cotton tail from one of the kites and tied it to his belt, grabbed the twine ball and gripped one end between his teeth, gave the other end to his children, and up into the air he flew away into the wind. And across the meadows and over the farms, his daughter and sons ran, feeding out string into the daylit sky, shrieking and stumbling. And Brunilla stood out on the farm porch and waved and laughed to know that from now on her family would run and fly in joy. The children pell-mell to the far Kite Hill and stood, the 3 of them, holding the ball of twine in their eager, proud fingers, each tugging, directing, pulling. The children from town came running with their small kites to let up the wind, and they saw the great green kite dripping and hovering in the sky, and they exclaimed, Oh, what a kite! Oh, I wish I had a kite like that. What a kite! Where did you get it? Our father made it, cried the honorable daughter, and the 2 fine sons, and gave an exultant pull on the twine, and the humming, thundering kite in the sky flew and soared and wrote a great and magical exclamation mark across the cloud.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful story. And again, it's about a man having to give up his wild single life willingly because he falls in love,
Mhm.
and liking the life he has with his wife and children, but mourning the life he had, realizing that there's a part of him that can no longer be. Now, he doesn't learn how to suddenly go out and be the same person he was, because you can't, but he learns that he can still be him. He hasn't lost his identity. His identity has changed somewhat. He can still do everything he wanted. It's in this new context now. It's a blending of all of the fulfillment he used to have with the new fulfillment of his family. He can still fly free, but it's with his children cheering, and it's his wife smiling, and it's, as pleasing them as their kite. Beautiful story. And it's basically just a story of a man learning how to reclaim his identity even once he's got a family, but the supernatural trappings around it give us a new context for it. It's wonderful. It's just a wonderful story.
And it's also kind of nice where you have basically a creature of the night who finds love with we assume an ugly woman, but he doesn't see her as that. He sees the beauty in her.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet that these two found each other and like what they see, even though someone else might not exactly be too thrilled.
Yeah, and I like that line that in her laughter, something like she lets slip a beauty from the mask of homeliness or whatever,
Right. And I've always, you and I have discussed that in the past. Sometimes you see someone who may not be the vision of beauty you may immediately think of, but then you get to know them and suddenly you look at them one day and you're like, darn, when did they get so beautiful?
Well, yeah, I mean, you do find someone visually more beautiful and attractive when you do feel strongly for them. There's also a wonderful principle. Dr. David Anders is a Catholic apologist and theologian that I like to listen to a lot. And he often tells a story when he's talking about marriage. He tells a story about his parents and how his dad would always call his mom some cheesy, like, "Oh, you're so beautiful, the most beautiful woman in the world." And he would say something cheesy almost like every single day. He would say the same thing. And he asked his dad once, like, "Dad, why do you keep saying that? Why do you keep saying that over and over again?" And his dad said, "Because she needs to hear it, and so do I." And it wasn't that he had to he wasn't saying that he had to fool himself into thinking his wife's beautiful. No, but there is a practice to love, a practice to affection, especially for couples that have been together that long years in marriage. You have to keep and work to fight that, or to stoke and keep that flame alive. So actively adoring, your significant other is a muscle that you flex. So it's interesting to put that in context here of Einar. He's perfectly content with his new life. He just doesn't know how to fill the void of something he feels he's lost. And he realizes that the problem is he's been trying to reclaim it in exactly the same way he used to experience it as a single man. You can't do that anymore, but you can still experience it now in a new wonderful way as a family man. So really great story. Team Ghost Planet says Jake says he doesn't like love stories. They're not all love stories. It's okay. Casey Lork. Oh, welcome, Casey Lork. There's great power in hearing yourself say something. Yeah, absolutely. We close with these two short little chapters, which are still nonetheless very fun. Other members of the family there kind of giving their definition or giving their little stories. We have the whisperers. Some took solid flesh or coming all around trying to hear who the next person would be. And I like this Thievin Voice, this very short little chapter 17. He's talking about the Thievin Voice was built when the tomb doors in ancient Egypt were constructed. The creak of the hinge, and instead of putting grease fat on the hinge or whatever so they wouldn't make a noise, the Egyptians venerated the fact that was a noise and started interpreting the noise of the hinge as though the gods were speaking to them. So giving it a presence, giving it a persona, giving it an identity there. And they had invented the hinge made of solid bronze and ternium metal, but had not invented the lubricant to make the hinge gape quietly. So when the band doors were open, I was born. Very small at first, my voice, a squeak, a squeal, but soon the vibrant declaration of the gods, hidden, a secret declaration, unseen. Ra and Bubastis spoke through me. The holy worshippers riven now paid a much attention to my syllables, my preambulating squeals and grindings as they did the golden masks and harvest blanching fists. And he talks about going over the time and remaining developing, evolving. Once born, I never died. Almost, but no. While oils glistened the gates and doors of the world, there was always one door, one hinge, where I lodged for a night, a year, or a mortal lifetime. So I have made it across continents with my own linguistics, my own treasures of knowledge, and the rest here among you, representative of all the openings and closures of a vast world, but not butter, nor grease, nor bacon rind upon my resting places. He calls himself, just call me the Thievin Voice. And Timothy's like, how do you spell Thievin?
Yeah, like how do you spell that?
Yeah.
But,
such a great.
So basically, the concept is he was the Thievin Voice manifested from the noise of the first hinge, and now lives within any squeaky hinge.
Yep.
In the world. That's kind of a neat that's a neat concept.
Well, it's such a basic trope of haunted houses, a creaking door, and puts you on edge, is that a door or is that a ghost or what is that, that noise? I've got a couple doors that creak whenever Alyssa's asleep, and I'm like, oh, I've got to go WD-40 that later at some point. I always forget.
I've got my the best chair that my mother sits in and wakes me up in the morning when she sits down.
Yeah. Yep. I don't ever pay attention to the noises in my place until Alyssa's here asleep, and then it's like everything like, oh, that makes a noise, and
did that wake
back
her?
in my chair, squeak, and yeah. So,
so finishing it out, eh?
Finishing out the book next week, completely done, and looking back on it in totality.
Basically, not the world of Ray Bradbury though, where they have the little samples.
No, those are samples of other books. If you got the paperback, it's got a little samples of others' books trying to sell you on those. We're not. Yeah, we'll get to some of those books definitely. We do like Something Wicked This Way Comes. We've done The Illustrated Man, October Country. Good
Martian
stuff.
Chronicles would be cool.
Yeah, not for October. That'd be a sci-fi. That's good. Yeah. So yeah, chapters 18 through the end of the book for next week, and it's probably a little slightly less than what we read this time, page count wise, but good.
But even so, it's a quick read. It really is. The audio version's only like 4 hours, so it does go fairly quickly.
Yeah. Stephen Cruz has bought a comic today called Bigfoot Frankenstein. Haven't read it yet, but it looks fun and right up Big Al's alley. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Edward wants to know what you do all day besides watching TV.
Sleep, eat,
record reviews.
I do reviews.
Write up
things.
Once
I have a little privacy, I do that. I read the books that we're doing here. I do watch a lot of things because hey, I review them. So I try to keep abreast of things, and sometimes I play my favorite video game, like I did today.
Your Angry Birds.
Lots of pig killing.
You still play the Star Wars games where you're like the ships and stuff?
I haven't in a while, but I do play beyond Angry Birds. I also play. There's a golf game that I play.
I was just a mobile gamer, not a PC or console.
Yeah, I just the little simple stuff. I've never gotten to like.
Although,
Xbox or PlayStation.
You know what? They have ported Knights of the Old Republic for mobile games, mobile phones and apps and stuff for tablets. So you could get in on that. It's supposed to be pretty good.
I'll look into that. I remember trying to play the one of the Star Trek ones that was on Facebook, and it just didn't thrill me.
Yeah,
I like very simplistic games,
In terms of what's coming up, again, maybe I'll do a live stream tomorrow. I really hope I will. I'm going to do a live stream at some point because I want to read some of my own creepy Halloween style stories before Halloween. So yeah, either this Friday or next Friday has to be. But stay tuned. I'll put out, I'll try and set it up a little bit before then. Saturday, Al, what's rewatch going on?
The rewatch on my channel is Phantom of the Paradise.
That's right. That one you were telling me about.
1974, Brian De Palma, horror, comedy, musical, weird. If you like Rocky Horror, you might. It's in a similar vein, kind of, But real a lot of fun. Gonna have, of course, the Pacellis and special guest Agent Boomer
Nice, cool,
will be joining me.
great. And Monday night, of course, Sound Engraver will be doing her Monday night stream again. She said, "Now this was going to be cool." She's talking about the music of Scooby Doo, which is awesome. The old original comic cartoons, that jazzy, 60s stuff. Because she's been playing the Scooby Doo video games on the Retro Box too, which have that same music too, which are so wonderful. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun stream. So 9:30, yeah, at this point, she might eventually move it to 9, but right now it's still at 9:30 p.m. on Monday nights on her stream. As you might have seen, I've been dropping videos on my channel. Some of my best of Halloween videos over the last couple years, or 2-3 years, or whatever, when I've been in Halloween content. I am going to do one original video for this year, because when I was doing the monster archetypes, I just released yesterday, of course, the vampire archetype video. I never actually made a standalone werewolf archetype video because we kind of covered that during a live stream. So I instead did a werewolf recommendation video. I'll still re-release the recommendation video, but I'm also going to record a proper standalone werewolf archetype video and talk about writing them properly and whatnot. But I've re-released the ghost story archetype video. I've got some other ones to re-release. And then, of course, on Tuesday night, we had to skip this last Tuesday because my schedule was weird. I had fall break and everything, and different schedule with Alyssa. But next Tuesday night, we will return with the Two Towers book study over on the Catholic Bible Geek channel. I just recorded another video for that I'll be editing and dropping probably tomorrow.
Battle of Helm's Deep.
Battle of Helm's Deep. Yeah, we get to talk about that. It'll be fun. And then, of course, Thursday night back here to finish out From Dust Returned. Just to remind you, we are doing in November. And now I'll announce next week. I don't think we need to take a break on Thursday. But the next book we're going to start in November is going back to the Star Wars EU for a bit, and we're going to do Allegiance by Timothy Zahn. Again, covering some of the background of Mara Jade and Luke and Co.'s adventures there. That takes place between the New Hope and Empire after Scoundrels. And it'll be fun to get through that because we're ultimately working towards doing the Hand of Thrawn duology eventually once we kind of work up to that point. So Allegiance, I will put a link. I'll edit the description later and put a link to where you can pick up a copy of that if you want. So that's all. That's all. You got anything else, Al, to say?
No, just keep an eye out on my channel. I'm going to try to get a video done the next day or so. A little thoughts on Another Life, which I do recommend. It does have some social commentary a little bit, but it's still worth it if you like good solid sci-fi storytelling.
Yeah.
And of course, my thoughts on Halloween and Halloween Kills is up if anybody is curious.
I'm afraid to watch that one.
Yeah, I don't think it's your kind of thing.
No, not the movie. I'm talking about your review. I'm afraid to watch your review.
Why?
Let me just say that I guess you knew at some point Fan Man was going to see your review, so it can't be but so bad. All right.
I will tell you the stars that I've given it is Halloween is 2.5, and Halloween Kills is 1.5. That's out of 5.
Out of 5. Okay. All right. Yeah. So Al puts those out, and he does retro reviews as well. Goes back and looks at classic movies and reviews those. Yeah. Good. So, all right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Go steam some broccoli. And thanks for watching. And until next time, check for a standalone video by tomorrow at some point. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.
Flying away.
That was lame.